Welcome to the podcast. I want to start by introducing Rich. He is an independently contracted agent with Phillips Stafford Insurance Group, where he specializes in providing tailored insurance solutions for personal, farm, and small business clients. With a deep understanding of his clients' needs, Rich brings a unique perspective to the insurance industry, backed by a successful career in medical device sales. And that's kind of how I got connected to Rich. He was born and raised in Southeast Iowa. Rich pursued his passion for athletics and education at Iowa State, where he majored in kinesiology and competed as a sprinter on the track and field team. After college, Rich moved to Omaha, Nebraska, where he built a thriving career as a medical device sales rep and manager in the orthopedic field. Driven by his passion for connecting with people and delivering personalized care, Rich transitioned back to Iowa and into the insurance industry. He chose the independent insurance route to offer his clients greater flexibility, ensuring they receive the exact coverage they need at the best rates. His expertise spans all lines of insurance, including personal business and farm policies. Outside of work, Rich enjoys spending quality time with his wife, daughter. He's an avid golfer, fitness enthusiast, and enjoys hunting, reflecting his appreciation for both active pursuits and the great outdoors. Yeah, that is, I can speak to some of that, Rich. I don't know how fast you are, but I know you're great at insurance and you're a good dude that appreciates people.
Yeah, I don't know if I would say I still qualify as fast. Maybe once was.
Yeah,
So,
well, and when you moved to Omaha, did you become a Husker fan or?
I mean, I attended games and stuff like that. A lot of my coworkers were former Husker players, so it was kind of fun. But honestly, it was more just kind of comedy for me to hear every year the black shirts are back and we're going. It feels like the late '90s again, and then it'd be 3 wins later, and
Yeah.
so. But no, I enjoyed it. I mean, it's going to Lincoln on game day is a blast. So I actually got back this year for a game too, and
Oh, nice.
yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah. Yeah. So can you just kind of fill us in how I gave a little bit of brief introduction, but how you got to be in insurance? And yeah, I mean, I'm a former college athlete and coach, so I'd love to hear some of your athletic background. That's something that I'm always interested in, and just hear a little bit more about your experience at Iowa State.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, like I mentioned, I was born and raised in Pella. At Pella, I was pretty active all year round in a sport. I was a 3-sport athlete once I got to high school. So I do football in the fall and pretty much train for that all summer, basketball in the winter, and then run track in the spring. So really just kind of identified that I love to compete. It just didn't really matter what it was. Football was definitely, I would say, like my passion sport, like just had a blast with it. It's, I say this, like track is not a game. If you look at track, obviously you wrestling, you don't go to like track and wrestling games, you go to meets. Whereas when you go play basketball, you go play football, it's a game. Like it's designed in theory to be fun. Whereas, the tracks and wrestlings of the world, it is you under a magnifying glass and win or lose. So yeah, originally I had been recruited by Iowa State, both for football and for track. And then in the playoffs my senior year, broke an ankle. Iowa State threw out some numbers and said, hey, if you can run fast in the spring, we'll bring you onto the track team still. I was fortunate enough that I healed up fairly well from the ankle surgery. And at that point said, hey, I'm not going to do football. I just don't want to go through this again. And in hindsight, I'm very happy because I'm still I'm a pretty achy old man and didn't play football. So yeah, I got to Iowa State and my plan was I was dead set I was going to be a doctor. And in hindsight, I've done a ton of reflecting on this. Like one of my best friends, both of his parents were physicians. And so I looked at their family and how stable it was, financially, and they were just great people. So I think I just set that as like the benchmark of success. And so I pursued kinesiology, applied to medical school, did all of that stuff. Was fortunate along the way where I got introduced to somebody in the med device world and said, hey, I'm going to do this in the meantime to stay involved in medicine. And so, yeah, essentially transitioning out of college, jumped right into that, realized pretty quickly that all I was really looking for was stability and something that challenged me mentally. So yeah, hopped right into that, spent 9 years on that, was very fortunate to have a lot of success early on, just on the sales side, and then eventually build out a team, gain some territory, ended up managing my product line for the whole agency and got to do a lot of sales training, hiring, recruiting, all of that stuff. And yeah, It was a blast. It definitely molded me into who I am now. And then, yeah, I mean, back to the college side, I'd barely been out of the state of Iowa prior to college. So, being a part of the Big 12, I got to travel, see the whole country, get a lot of experience, with a lot of different people from all different walks of life, and learn to compete at a very high level, which, is humbling. And at the same time, it just kind of taught me that, hey, if you do the same boring thing over and over again, eventually you get pretty good at it. So I think that's one of the reasons why I'm so big on recruiting college athletes, is just because they learn to floss. Flossing is a great way to look at it, where it's like the little things that take 30 seconds that are easy to throw out the door. If you keep flossing every day, you're going to have nice teeth, right? So it's the same thing in business and life. And I think college athletes have a pretty good appreciation for that. So yeah, I feel like that set me up for success in the professional world. Went off, was lucky to have a lot of success at the company I was at. And then along the way, timing wise, I started doing some investing in real estate. And so I kind of got a taste for that self-employed life and what that can look like. Also along the way, had gotten married, had my first kid, and just started to see the challenges of what my life 20 years from now might look like. It required a lot of travel. From a compensation standpoint, it was just kind of like, hey, it was corporate America, where one way or the other, ultimately you were under the thumb of someone else. And I just didn't love that. So at that point, my wife and I, yeah, as you mentioned, we're living in Omaha. All of our family's back in Iowa. And I think it was like probably our third weekend in a row coming back for who knows what, a birthday party or something. And we're about halfway back on the drive, and out of the blue, I'm just going to throw it out there. I was like, why don't we just move to Des Moines? And it was without hesitation. My wife goes, sounds good. Let's do it. So we're like, all right, you've thought about this. And yeah, I mean, it was 6 months later. We were in Iowa, new house, new life. I walked away from my career. She walked away from her career. So pretty quickly, I was kind of put my feet to the fire saying, hey, what am I going to do? Because I knew it wasn't going to be medical device sales anymore. So I mean, I looked at a ton of things. I was like, well, if I'm going to be buying properties and stuff, maybe I should be a real estate agent. But coming from this background of a quota-based career, I just couldn't wrap my head around being like, hey, come the start of the year, I'm starting over again. That had just kind of worn on me. So then I had a father-in-law who's a financial advisor, does an awesome job. And he was like, be a financial advisor. That's a no-brainer. And as silly as it is, it was just me looking myself in the mirror going, hey, I would not trust you to invest my money, 29-year-old rich. And so I said, nope. Not doing that. And then he encouraged me. He's like, well, if you're not going to do that, I would encourage you to explore insurance, largely because the business makes sense. And so when I really dove into it and started looking at how the business is structured and the opportunity to build a team and, verticals around my insurance business, a lot of that just added up. So, so I walked into that. I mean, I literally didn't even know who insured my own car as I went through this, but I interviewed with everybody. I talked to all the big players, the state farms, farm bureaus, all of them. I was fortunate. My realtor introduced me to the group I'm with now, Philip Stafford Insurance Group. And honestly, without even vetting them, I just said, all right, well, I'm going to roll the dice and see what happens here. So took that leap of faith. It's been 2.5 years ago now, largely just because I could be my own business. There was no quota, there was no pressure, no training, which is a balance, but it also allowed me to be the exact person that I am and not necessarily have to fit into this like corporate mold. Right. So I was able to leverage the knowledge of all these other agents when it came to like the actual insurance products and stuff like that. But as far as like how I wanted to brand myself, market myself, tailor my business, it has given me the freedom to do that however I so choose. And that's been pretty cool. So here we are 2.5 years later from, med device to insurance agent, the classic route.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't know if there's any classic route to insurance unless, you inherited a book. Because one of my good buddies, he's an insurance agent and he was a cop for like 23 years and kind of same thing. He's like, I had a couple bad experiences in law enforcement and he's like, I got out and somebody on LinkedIn hit me up about this. And I was like, you are the only former, officer I know in the industry.
Yep. Well, you pull so many people over that don't have insurance. I mean,
yeah, it's like, so most of the time, people are mad about their insurance rates going up because of a police officer. Now they have to yell at a police officer because it's going. Yeah, it's just funny that, the people I know, it's not like a traditional route. And I don't know what a traditional route would even be in this industry.
I don't think anybody's like dream is to be the local insurance agent. It's like, it's like not the sexiest business in the world, but you make an impact every day, and there's a lot of opportunities for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, 100% agree with that. So, so 2.5 years ago, you got into it, and that's kind of really what I want to jump into is, um, what are the things that you did to build your network and grow that book of business that you have, grow the connections, and yeah, be as successful as you have been.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, I tell everybody I've ever hired in any career the same thing, and I apply it to myself, where it's like, I think if you're somebody who shows up every day and works at least kind of hard, you're probably better than most people, right? So that was one thing just early on where I was committed to, hey, I'm just going to outwork everybody. I wanted everybody in my network to know who I am and what I'm doing and think of me when, right? So I set out a goal for myself that first year where I said, I want to have one coffee every single day for the whole year for every business day, whether that's with a business owner, realtor, mortgage lender, financial advisor, other insurance agent, whatever it is. I just wanted to touch base with all these people and figure out, why are you successful? What works for you? What doesn't work from you? Let me learn from your successes and failures and implement it all into my own game plan to say, hey, if I take all these really good things from all these other people and implement it, hopefully I'm pretty successful from it. So, yeah, so I think I asked a lot of questions. I learned a ton because of it. And that allowed me to, I think, grow faster just by creating those organic relationships and caring, right? Yeah, go ahead.
Were you successful in having coffee with somebody every single day?
Yeah, I ended up actually closer to 2. So like the number broke down to like 1.8 something coffees a day. And so I went from a guy who did not drink caffeine to a guy who drinks quite a bit of caffeine now. But having a second kid in the mix definitely probably added to that as well. But yeah, I was successful in it. And, I still push activity pretty hard. I think, I'm somebody who believes in social media. I use social media, but I think social media is a tool that is more of that like high level blanket reminder of who you are and where you're at. But I think it's really difficult to replace those warm introductions that you get from people that know you in person. So, yeah, like I said, while I do utilize social media as a brand awareness tool, I would say my largest referral bases are from people that I've spent time to personally get to know and pour into, create value for. And I think life just finds a way of giving it back one way or the other.
How'd you facilitate those coffees, and like what was kind of the process for making that happen?
Yeah, so it was a combination of ways. Social media was one like soft introduction to people that I did, where it's like, you start interacting. It's kind of like you're dating, where you're like flirting, like in their pictures, whatever, and then eventually you guys kind of like shoot a couple messages back and forth. And at some point, it's like, hey, we should grab a coffee, right? But to be honest, I was pretty old school, right? I just picked up the phone and called a lot of people like, hey, it seems like you're super successful. I'd love to buy you a coffee and just pick your brain and hear about why it worked. And, one thing I've realized over time is I've never met somebody more successful than me that's not willing to give me the information I'm looking for. So, and if you do come across somebody who's not willing to do it, they're probably not the guy you need to have a coffee with anyways. So, so it was good. I mean, there are plenty of people who ghost you, don't respond, whatever, but that's just a part of the game. And I was happy to have the success I did with it. But yeah, it was really that. And then I also did some targeted ads and stuff like that, where it was like never me saying like, hey, send me insurance, send me whatever. It was more so I would target all these people I wanted to meet with or their offices or whatever, and just start blasting out value, right? Like, hey, I've got 10 years of sales experience and developing teams and figuring out why I'm different. And here's maybe something I could add to create value for you. And that was just enough to like spark curiosity for people. Like, man, it seems like this insurance agent is doing something different than just your average insurance agent. And that usually was enough to create more of a warm intro, where when I called, they'd be like, yeah, actually, I see your stuff. Like, you must be doing pretty well. And so it just created that little bit of an in, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. Like when you look back and you say I had coffee with 2 people, so you probably had coffee with what? Let's say 400 people.
Yep.
How many of those relationships do you still like, are you still like super active with? And you're like, would you say 20 or 30 or
yeah, I would
5?
probably say it's somewhere like 30 to 40.
Yeah.
And it's been interesting as my business has changed. That has changed too, where it's like I had a post earlier this week where I talked about, I feel like my circle's gotten smaller, but at the same time, it's gotten exponentially bigger, where, when you start any business, there's a period of time where you're going, I will do anything just to keep the lights on, put
Yeah.
food on the table, whatever. Like, I'm willing to put up with people who don't treat me well if it means I'm getting deals, right? And then, hopefully at some point you reach a level of success where maybe you're not so desperate for business or whatever it is. And you start looking at like, hey, are these people on the same trajectory as me? Do they believe the same things I believe? Like, or are they going to be that person I sit down with and walk away from the meeting feeling drained? So yeah, so I would say there were a lot of relationships that I pushed hard for a year or two, and just kind of realized like, man, you know, I'm a commodity in this relationship. It's very one-sided. And so a lot of those I've just kind of let them drift away at this point. But it's funny to see like how my numbers change, saying like, hey, I'm only looking to partner with people who fill my cup, if you will. It's probably a dumbed down way to say it, but in meeting with 400 people, you learn to discern pretty fast who's wired the same way as you are. And that means walking away from some high producers, people who could send you a lot of leads, but if their process doesn't match up with your process or their values don't align with your values, then, at the end of the day, like, isn't that kind of what life's about, right? Surrounding yourself with people that are chasing the same things you're chasing, building you up and making you better. So, I would say, across all the different industries I met with, it's probably 30 to 40 people.
Yeah.
Something like
And
that.
yeah, I mean, I definitely, piggyback off that. And it's, people are always like, man, that person's super successful, and it just comes down to like, it depends on what you value, right? Talk to somebody that was a customer or a prospect yesterday, and, stay-at-home mom with 3 kids. I'm like, that person's super successful, if you value being with your family, right? So, it just comes down to what lens you're looking through. And I think that's the key. Like you said, like finding people that value the same thing you do, and you just, you grow together in the same direction with the same thing in mind. Yeah. And that's so huge. And when I was coaching wrestling, I was like the same way, we're not a great fit for everybody. Like, we don't value the same things other coaches do. And you're not going to be happy here if I'm not real transparent with what my values are, and you're not transparent with what yours are. Like, let's not have a 4-year struggle,
Yeah, it's
So,
better
like,
for both parties.
100%.
We walked away from one of the larger mortgage groups here in town. I won't name any names, but they're great. They're super successful. I genuinely think they're good people, but our process was just so different, where, the way we operate is we're going to do our due diligence, whether you're a business, whether you're a person. I want to know about you, your life, your goals, what's important to you in this whole thing. And if the only thing you care about is the dollars and cents at the bottom, I will be the first one to encourage you to go online and build your own quote, because it'll be cheaper every time. So, we filter people out on the front end. We're like, if the only thing you care about is price, I won't be the guy for you. And so in this person's process, it was going, hey, I'm going to give you minimal information. I'm just going to give you a house and a name. Give me a ballpark. I'm going to do this with 4 different agents, and whichever one's the cheapest, that's the one we'll send our client to. And so, I mean, I was like, unfortunately, we're going to get a ton of leads, but like, I won't do it. And, I sent a message back, like, so much respect for the business you've built, whatever. But, at the end of the day, if in your shoes, if a real estate agent said, hey, here's three lenders, I'm putting you on an email, send me your best rate, and that's who gets the deal. Like, we're probably just not chasing the same thing.
Yeah.
Right. Because that client, if the only thing they cared about was dollars and cents, and next year your prices go up, guess what? They're out the door. Yeah. Whereas if I see the same value in my clients and they see, wow, we work with Rich because he's, proactive, takes care of us, make sure that in the event of a claim, things are good, that guy's going to stick with you through thick and thin and understand that you have their best interest. So, that's just kind of how I've framed my business in all my relationships, whether it's client relationships, referral partners, whatever it is. And I think it just creates a little more stable of a foundation.
Yeah, for sure. That takes me back. I was talking to another agent out of Omaha, and he was talking about in his hiring process, he quotes somebody and he asks them, what their insurance is. And basically he goes, if they have state minimums, that's as far as they get in the process, right? If they don't have great coverage and they don't value great coverage, they're not part of our team. And he's like, I want to see that before they get into my agency, you know, because I don't know if they have a good foundation.
Yeah.
Sounds like maybe we should have the same conversation with our mortgage referral partners, right? Of like,
Yeah. Right.
what kind
Yeah.
of that guy probably had horrible coverage, right?
Yeah. But yeah, it's, and and it's, the tough thing
Because he
is if
didn't
you're
value having a great conversation and figuring out how should this person be, you know.
right. Exactly. And it's, it's tough because we're in an industry that's so commoditized, right? If you looked at the average person's experience in insurance, I was one of them. Prior to this, like I said, I didn't even know, like in one of my interviews, they asked me who my current car insurance was with, and I had no idea. Like, I don't know. I have some dude I call and he just deals with it. I don't know anything about it. I wouldn't have known if I had state minimums, or I wouldn't know if I had 250, 500. Like, I just trusted the
Yeah.
guy and said, yeah, do whatever you think makes sense. See ya. And, because it's so commoditized and there's so little education and like personal relation to it anymore, I think it encourages people to treat it that way until they have, a conversation with a URI on the phone. It's like, hey, like, we actually need to understand this because what if? And people don't understand the what ifs of insurance until they've had something bad happen. And then it's like, oh, shoot, maybe saving $40 a year wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
And I wish I would have known. So
Yeah. It's 100% the truth of, like, and I was the same way, I was on Progressive, clicked around, said, oh, that's $7 more. That seems worth it. That one's $20 more. I'm not going to do that. That seems too expensive to add. And I don't even know what I'm doing.
yeah,
I'm just
and you don't
seeing,
even know what the things mean.
no, you're just clicking and you're like, that's $1 more. Heck, I'll spend an extra dollar. It's got to be better, right?
Yeah.
And that was truly how I built my auto policy was this doesn't cost much to go up. This one does. Let's not do that,
Yep. Also, you get a
and
liability only state minimum policy and you're rocking and
yeah, they
rolling.
gave it to me.
Yeah.
But like, that's the truth. And I mean, so many of the conversations I have with people are, I don't know what that means. It's just what somebody gave me. And I know you like to educate really well, and that's what we like to do as well. And it's kind of like insurance agents are doing it to themselves because not every insurance agent is having a good conversation, right? They're just saying, hey, Rich, I got you this car policy for $25 a month. You're good to go. And 23-year-old Rich is saying, sweet, that's what I wanted. I don't want to have to deal with it.
Great.
And so it's like, as an industry, we're doing it to ourselves, and we just need more people that are like, valuing what we're offering and giving ourselves value,
Right. 100%. Yeah. But it's an opportunity, right? Where it's like, if you're one of the few that does it, inevitably those are the people that go, oh my gosh, I've consumed insurance for the last 20 years and no one's ever told me what any of this meant. Wow. I wonder if my mom has coverage or my dad, and it just snowballs.
Yeah.
So it's a shame, but I think at the same time, if you're willing to be, a 1%er, you can make a pretty big splash just by trying a little bit.
Yeah. It goes back to just working just a little bit harder.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's still not hard, but
yeah, it's like, it's, I'm not asking you to go like lay bricks all day. It's like, let's talk on the phone for 5 extra minutes.
Yeah.
It's so simple, but
yeah. I mean, just talking about all this, and we're on the same page with pretty much everything that we talk about, it seems like, and we had coffee together. So it just kind of brings me, to just, I kind of want to dive into, our relationship, like the whole concept of the deal is to talk about how to, be on the same page and, just find people that are on the same wavelength and trying to, go about it the same way, and synergize. And I really do think, like, probably 7 months ago, right, I tried to organize an insurance breakfast club where like 5 to 7 agents get together and we all have breakfast. And one agent that was like, yeah, I'll do it. And she's awesome, right? And she's phenomenal. And she brought somebody else in and he was not on the same wavelength. And she's like, I think he's, it was not. He didn't vibe at all. And he spent most of the coffee saying like, oh, I would never do that. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's fine, man. You can just keep doing your thing. But her and she's from American Family, and again, just an absolute rock star. Anytime we talk, she, just gives me more energy, and she's doing awesome. And she's like, she's, what I would call like a legacy, right? Her parent was in it, and that now she's in it, but she does a phenomenal job, and she's super passionate about it, and yeah, just wants to grow and do better. And similar to me and you, like, she believes in her company, which I think is huge too. Like, I love that you love what you do. She loves what she does. I love what I do,
Yeah,
and I mean, like, that fires me up too. I want to be around people that aren't like bashing on who they work for and saying like, oh, what we do sucks, like that just drives me nuts. I don't want you to believe in my company more than you believe in your company. I
totally.
want it to be the opposite, and you're like, hey, we do things awesome. Uh,
Yep.
and that's who I like to work with. So yeah, I mean, if you want to just kind of talk about how, we've worked together and the things that we've been able to accomplish together, and I'll jump in and talk about it as well. But
Yeah, no, that'd be great. I mean, I think, our initial introduction was through a mutual friend, and I think he probably, before we did, saw the similarities in us, and shout out to Zabka for that.
yeah,
But
yeah,
um,
town of 300, and we meet the
yes,
same guy from
yeah,
Pella, Iowa.
yeah, right, exactly. So yeah, so he made the introduction, and I think just like pretty quickly, I could see that you were wired similar to me. And I ran into like almost the exact same thing. Like, so throughout my process of getting these, 400 coffees or whatever, I reached out to all the top dogs in insurance in Des Moines. And I was like, I would love to hear from you. Like, I am a nobody trying to figure this out. Like, let's grab coffee. None of them responded to me, literally zero. So it was, yeah, definitely got the stiff arm on that. And that's okay.
Yeah,
Whatever. It didn't affect me in any way, but um, yeah, I was looking to build that. And the truth be told, I reached out to a lot of the independent agents. So similar to what I was doing, and you were the first person from Allstate I had connected with, and it was just cool. Like, your guys' business structure is so different than mine, where it was like, man, I feel like I could probably really learn some things from you, because like, from like leads and team building and all that stuff, it was just so the other end of the spectrum from like how I had done things that, yeah, I was just like immediately, like, I know I can learn things here. And I feel like you have clients or you have prospects and stuff that I could probably help serve. And I know I have people that you guys can better serve. And so, for me, it's like, I think if you just approach it with this abundance mindset of like, in insurance, there are just bazillions of opportunities where it's like, the odds of
yeah,
us stepping on each other's toes are so small that I would rather just use each other as an asset and be like, hey, you're going to be super successful. I'm going to find a way to be super successful. How do we do this together and help support each other? And I think, that's been a great thing for us. My initial focus in my business was very heavy on the home and auto space. And, we still write a lot of it, but now a lot of that goes to my team. And most of my focus is in high value homes and the commercial space. And that's, obviously not all states focus, right? So my thought was always like, well, if you guys can make a good handoff to somebody from somewhere in the community and things go really well, that still looks good on you versus saying like, hey, dude, can't help you. Good luck. Go to Google. And same thing for me. There are plenty of people who are out of my appetite that I've called you guys and you guys have crushed it for them. And those are people who are writing me reviews, being like, man, Rich isn't only in it to make a buck. He made sure we got with the right person and things went awesome. So yeah, I mean, that has rolled into quite a few relationships with me, where I've got another guy at State Farm here in town who's awesome, and they have different appetites than we have, and we send stuff back and forth. I actually write one of his personal policies, which is funny. But it just kind of opened my eyes to like, you know what, independent agents probably want nothing to do with me, and that's fine. But I've found a lot of great colleagues through Allstate in different cities and stuff like that where we work. Same thing with State Farm. I've got a firm bureau contact. I just picked up another one down in Arizona for my Scottsdale clients. And it's just like, I don't know. When you find people who have an abundance mindset, I think you realize you can be much more of an asset to each other than competition. And the people who view it that way are probably going to go a long ways.
yeah, I 100% agree. And I think like, and I have most of my stuff with Allstate, but Allstate doesn't have an appetite for everything that I own. And you've quoted some of the stuff that I own, and ultimately, like, I ended up writing a bunch of it with State Farm because like their company has a huge appetite, and like that was my agent before on a bunch of rental property stuff, and he does phenomenal, and he is like he wants to really synergize, but I feel like he's a little nervous about the State Farm lockdown a little bit,
Yeah.
and what they're willing to let him, synergize on.
Yep.
But he's awesome. I love having lunch or coffee with him. He's not a huge coffee drinker, but
Yeah.
yeah, like he's, like and again, it's like I tried to connect with a State Farm agent in town, and there's like 13 of them. But he writes a lot of people I know in a small community. I'm like, we should work together. I got a lot of stuff. I kind of know State Farm's appetite that I can't help them. I would love to just send them to you, but again, like he's super competitive mindset, right? Like he's like, I don't work with a competition. And
right. Well, and I think, the thing I've realized pretty quickly is it has definitely like having these relationships outside of, just being myself and understanding the appetites of all these other companies. It has really propelled me into being a, thought expert in my market, because instead of dragging these people through, a 3-week period of like, hey, I think I can write it. I think I can write it. Oop, I can't write it. It's so much easier when that, commercial real estate agent calls me and okay, well, it's an apartment complex from 1900. My markets aren't going to like it. So you need to try, it used to be State Farm. They've kind of tightened up, but now it's like, okay, you should call Shelter first on this one. And if they won't write it, we'll take it back because it's going to the E&S market. But in those professional circles, if you are, wise enough to delegate to the right person within those, that goes so much further than being like, oh yeah, I can definitely write it. And then you fall flat on your face. So
yeah.
I think the people who are closed off to those outside relationships end up shooting themselves in the foot a little bit when it comes to stuff like that.
Yeah. And like, it's like for every referral I've done, I've gotten one back.
100%.
I truly have.
Yep.
Like I've never been like, hey, we sent you one, you haven't sent one back, so that's the last one you get.
Yep.
And I think, I've definitely gotten to the point where I've been like, like, dude, you are just not enjoyable to work with, right?
Yeah.
So we're not going to send anything.
Yep.
And it's just, like you said, insurance is this huge thing. And, when I got into it, it was always like, I got to call my parents. I got to call my brother.
Yeah.
I got to call my cousins. Like, I got a big family. I should be finding insurance. And I quickly realized, like, dang, there's a lot of people out there that really, really need to have a better conversation and be better insured. So it makes a huge difference.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think, just to spin off your like one-to-one referral thing, it's really interesting. Like that was a piece that I had I feel like I had like insecurity about when I first got into the industry, where I was like, man, all these real estate agents are sending me deals, mortgage lenders are sending me deals. Like, God, how am I going to find a way to get them deals back? And, especially in like the real estate industry, I felt a ton of pressure from them to be like, look, if I'm going to send you my referrals, like you need to get me referrals. And so I'd be like, well, how am I going to find people who need to buy houses? You know what I mean? Like, and with maturity in the industry, I quickly realized like, that's not a thing. And if that's like what's demanded of a relationship, like you don't actually have a relationship. That's just,
Yeah.
and
It's about
so-
making the experience great for the customer, right?
Right.
That's
exactly.
the referral. That customer said, man, my real estate agent hooked me up with the best insurance agent. She was awesome. He was awesome.
Yep.
That's who I tell everybody to use for a real estate agent, because the experience was just streamlined, right?
Yeah.
That's the referral.
Exactly. My whole goal is to make you look like a rock star. I'm so far down the process. By the time I get these clients, most of the time, they're already under contract on a house and they've got a loan, right? So like, I'm going to be a smooth part of that process, make sure it's a 10 out of 10. And then over time, I stay in front of them. If I hear they want to refi, or if I hear they want to buy again, like, sure, I'll plug you back in. But that's not where my value lies. And I'm confident in that now. And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And there are industries where I send a ton of referrals to that I will never get the same amount back from. And that's, again, like, all I want is my people to be with the best people they can be. Roofers, obviously, we sent a ton of roofs out. CPAs, I probably sent 30, 40 businesses out last year. And those are not people where I'm looking for reciprocity. I'm just looking for them to take care of them. So I think just, maturity in the industry allows you to realize, like, you know what, if I sent you 100 people next year and I didn't get one back, I wouldn't care, because I know you're going to treat them well. And that's all I was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So,
yeah. And I I laugh like my roofer that I love because he's so honest and like he's just the man. I actually went to college with him, disconnected for like 15 years, but then I got into this. I'm like, I need that, you know?
Yeah.
And he actually did a couple roofs for me. So I shouldn't say we were super disconnected, but um, he let me quote him. And I was like, dude, thanks, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
We didn't win him. He's not in my agency,
Yeah.
but I was like, dude, that's awesome. I appreciate that. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like I was super pumped about that. I don't know why, but
Yep.
you know, I'm like, you're doing me such a favor by being an honest, good dude when it comes
Right.
to these roofing estimates and quotes. Like, I'm not looking for anything, but yeah, he's
Yeah.
like, I'll take a quote. And I was like, okay, let's do this.
Sure. Why not?
Yeah. And, yeah, the other agent who he's probably with probably sends him more deals. Maybe that's my problem.
Sure. Whatever.
But no, it was awesome. Yeah, I was like, that was pretty fun.
That's
Yeah.
great.
All right. Last thing. Can you? I want to do 3 questions.
Okay.
My favorite one, and I steal this from Bigger Pockets.
Yep.
I'm a big Bigger Pockets guy. But what's your like favorite book or like, hey, this is the book I would tell everybody to read?
Yeah. So for me, 10 times is easier than 2 times would be my favorite book. I would say that was probably the most like life-changing book for me in my business. Really just allowed me to change the way I think about things. Like in short, it looks at it and says, hey, Jake, if next year you were going to double your business, how would you do it? And you'd probably say, well, I would work really hard and we would double it. But if I said, hey, Jake, next year you're going to do 10 times as much business, you're not hard working your way to that. You're going to have to change some things on the way you think, the way you build a team, the way you scale. And so that for me really, really changed the way that I kind of move day to day. So
Nice. And then, yeah, I guess the other question, then we'll wrap it up, is if you had one day where you didn't have to do anything, you know, you had no responsibilities, what would you spend it doing?
I would be with my family for sure. I feel like these days, like time is my scarcest resource. So if I can have, I look forward to the weekends where it's like no plans, no nothing. I'm just going to wake up, have a slow morning with the kids and my wife and go do something fun during the day and go to bed at 9:00.
Yeah, heck yeah, man, that's a dream.
Yeah.
What, like, how old are your kids and what do they like to do?
Yeah. So I've got a 7-month-old who likes to try to stand up, crawl around, chew on stuff. I've got a 3.5-year-old as well who is big into putting on dance shows for us lately. So we do a lot of Frozen, and she's big on the Science Center here in Des Moines. So I'm a self-proclaimed the best rocket builder at the Science Center, and she likes to tell everybody that. So that's fun. But
Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah, so it's good.
I got a 4-year-old. She got Elsa, and it's wild to me that that's still so huge. But she got Elsa stuff for Christmas, and yeah, like the last 2 nights, you know, they haven't had school or nothing. She's walking around, and she has 2 different Elsa outfits right now. So
Wow.
she's just kind of switching between the 2, and
yeah, that's great. Love it.
Yeah, it's hilarious. She's not a singer. She just likes to look like Elsa.
So ours is like gets into the emotion of the song and will close her eyes and twirl around, and it's
real performance.
It's pretty fun. Yeah.
Yeah, that is the best, man. It's that's the best job, right?
Yep. 100%.
Yeah.
So.
Well, appreciate you jumping on here, dude. Good conversation.
Thank you. That was awesome.
Yeah, love doing it, and fires me up to go out and meet some more people and create some more connections.